Today we're at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford, and we're here to head into this building behind me to take a look at the B-17 Flying Fortress. So in a couple of recent videos we've taken a look at some places associated with the series Masters of the Air. Well, of course you can't watch Masters of the Air without knowing that the guys are flying the B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft, a heavy bomber that was heavily associated and heavily used by the American Air Force. Well, here at Duxford they have a B-17 and it's in this hangar just behind me, and in fact it was used in Masters of the Air. The guys were brought here and were able to familiarise themselves with it, and I believe some of the scenes around the outside were filmed around one of them as well. I know there was some filming for the series here at Duxford. Well, what we're going to do today is head into the hangar just here behind me, and we're going to take a closer look at the B-17 and take a look at some of the different positions and some of the outside of the aircraft that was featured in the series. I say the outside of the aircraft because we won't be able to get inside it, unfortunately, but still I think it's going to be really interesting. So this behind me is the B-17 American bomber as featured in Masters of the Air. Now, we don't have a huge amount of time, and unfortunately I don't have the access to get inside the plane or anything like that. We're just going to look around the outside and talk about a few of the key positions that you would recognise from Masters of the Air. We're going to start with the main cockpit at the top right there. So from this side of the plane, of course, we have the main cockpit just here. That's where we've seen people like Cleven and Egan and the main pilots in the position there. And of course, in front of it from there, we see the nose area just through this little double window here. That's where the navigator would have sit. So people like Crosby, who we see in the show. Okay, next up we're going to look at the nose section. So just in here, behind here, is where the bombardier would have sat. You can actually see the little seat where he would be, and you can imagine here the vulnerability you would feel being sat in that front nose of the aircraft. But that's where the bombardier sits, and that's where he controls his bomb sight from, which would be just in that little window at the front to obviously come out underneath. And speaking of underneath, that's the next little piece we're going to go and talk about. So here underneath the plane you can see the ball turret hanging underneath, suspended at the bottom of this aircraft. What a terrifying place to be. Now what they have here at Duxford, which is fantastic, is a ball turret that we can see outside away from the plane. But you can see how tiny that is, right? Now the guys in here would be small, right? We're talking like, you know, sort of in the low 5 foot, 5'2", 5'3", that kind of height, maybe even at a maximum. But they would be cramped into that position, and they have a really interesting panel which shows us the position here. So you can see the guy is sat with his feet up here and looking between his feet with the gun. What a cramped position. And sometimes they'd be in there for hours, balled up in that little hole. Okay, so in the middle of the plane, of course, is where we had the waist being this middle section of the plane, I guess like the waist of your body. And either side you would have the waist gunners, one each side, so here and the other side as well. Heavily featured in the film, and an awful job, and in fact one of the most vulnerable positions with the highest casualty rate on a B-17. Either side. Now the B-17 we're looking at here has like a perspex cover, but that wouldn't have been the case in the time. That just would have been an open window where the guys would be manning those machine guns through. Just next to them in the middle section of the plane, that's where the radio operator would have sat. And of course up there above is the turret. So the flight engineer, who would be just kind of behind the pilot, he would also pop up the top there and he would man that top turret. Starting to see where some of the different positions in this plane come together. Now when you watch the show Masters of the Air, one of the positions I always thought looked the most terrifying was the tail gunner. And when you're here looking at the back end of the B-17, that does not change my opinion. You look at this would feel like such a lonely, vulnerable place to be. Enemy aircraft pulled in behind you and you are staring straight on at them. Of course, manning a tail gun, but oh dear, this would be a terrifying place to be, and a really small place as well. It's tiny there, and a pretty small access hatch that would then get them back up into the main body of the aircraft, but that's where the tail gunner would sit. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one from Duxford, taking a look at the B-17 Flying Fortress. Only a small video, I know, but I really enjoyed it, and really cool, having watched the series a couple of times, to come and see a real aircraft up close was really fascinating, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you did, do all the usual YouTube stuff for me right here on the screen. I would really appreciate that. Guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.